Hi and welcome to this, the very first edition of Land Rovers Live in 2015. As always, I'm Matt, and coming up on today's show, we have our review of the 2015 Range Rover Evoque autobiography. Then, for the last time in a little while, we'll be hearing from Sean Conway. And we'll also be taking a look through the solihull Defender production line. First up, we've got the news. Now, some of you may not have heard of this, but there's a podcast out there, audio only, called Centre Steer. It brings all the news, reviews and whatever else and ramblings of old men from North America. It's really interesting and brings a pretty different perspective to what we do here on Land Rovers Live and that you might have seen in other places across the web. It's really based around North America, though they do feature other people, and they asked me to come along recently, so we'll put the links on the screen for that. It's a great bunch of guys doing something really good from North America. In next week's show, we're going to be giving away all of the different bits and pieces that we showed in the Christmas gift guide just before Christmas. If you haven't caught that, we'll put a link on the screen. Christmas has gone, but we're going to give it all away to, well, one lucky winner. There is tons of stuff. We might put some of it on the screen. And unless you've been living under a rock, you'll have noticed that there's been some pretty big announcements from Land Rover in the last day or so. 3 new Defenders to be precise, to kick off their year of the Defender, which celebrates all things Defender related over the last 67 years. They've kicked it off in true Land Rover style with a great video of the original sketch drawing done a kilometre long across a beach in Anglesey. We'll put the link on the screen for that, and we'll be hearing a little bit later in the show from the Wilks brothers as well. But there are 3 new special edition Defenders that are all available staggered until August, I believe. The first off is the Adventure Special Edition. This is loosely based around, certainly the colouring and such, of a G4. It is available in, I think, 4 different colours. We'll put some pictures on the screen. It's pretty well specced out with all of the things that you'd expect. Then we've got the Heritage Land Rover. Now, we've seen a Heritage attempt before, and also the third-party tuning companies, they make Heritage vehicles. But you know when it comes from Land Rover, it'll be the real deal. We don't have any pictures of the interior of this at the moment, but I'm quite excited to see what that looks like as well. There's quite a bit of harping back to the Huey 166 in there. And finally, no Land Rover range is ever complete anymore without an autobiography version. So for the more refined Defender owner, you've got the Land Rover Defender autobiography. This will come with every conceivable bell and whistle, full leather trim, and everything you would expect. The prices start on these from £30,000 and they go all the way up to about £60,000 for the autobiography. So I can see on the social networks today that people have been placing orders for them. I don't know when they're going to run out or how many they're going to produce, but as soon as we can get our hands on one, we will let you know. We mentioned a little bit earlier that we'd hear from the Wilks family. So here now, during the filming of their 1 kilometre sand sketch of a Land Rover went along and interviewed the Wilks family. Here's what they got up to.
We used to come here for our holiday periods in the bay, Red Wharf Bay on Anglesey.
I just remember my father saying we're going to do something rather different, making a little utility vehicle that will have multi-purpose application.
My father actually made a drawing in the sand here. He drew it for his brother to show him an idea he had for the Rover company to produce. That must have been the sort of conception, really, of Land Rover.
That was typical of your father, to say, I want to tell you, Spen, what I'm thinking about. It'd look like this, like this, like this. It was, you know, a very obvious thing to do.
I don't suppose he had the idea that it would be so amazingly successful, but was well pleased. I remember going to the production line. They weren't all just banged out the same. It wasn't like that with Land Rover at all. There was about 10,000 different varieties of Land Rover.
So we've got a kilometre image to make, we've got 6 Land Rovers to pull it, and we've got about 3 hours to do it. Okay, so let's get the harrows on and off we go.
I don't think either of them were really very PR people. They're very much sort of very pragmatic and sort of very much into the engineering aspects of it, the manufacture. And he didn't think of it being pretty or great advertising campaigns or anything like that. he thought, well, there's a need for it. We won't have to advertise it, they'll just come wanting it.
Yeah, you're clear.
You know, being able to bring decent engine power in a mobile way to where you wanted to do things was a great idea. And you know, there wasn't really anything else doing that at the time, I don't think.
I think both the brothers, they both wanted a vehicle that was a sort of go anywhere, do anything vehicle. Something which was more utilitarian, not like a car. I think at that time, my father would have drawn in the sand his idea of something that would do that.
I think David Bay said, you know, I don't want to alter this too much. It's so good as it is. It was summed up by a funny old chap on Isla, who, meeting one for the first time, said, it is the tool for the job. That whatever you're trying to do, you could get help, whether it's, you know, pulling out fallen trees or herding sheep or whatever, using a Land Rover. You know, it's all come on so much since then. You can just see what a primitive idea the original one was. But they just became part of life. The cars were the cars and the Land Rover was the Land Rover.
There's a characteristic, isn't there? You can tell it's a Land Rover when you see it. It is an iconic design, always recognisable at a distance.
That was a really great piece there from Land Rover. They also do a shorter form version, which is available on YouTube and what have you. We'll put the links on the screen for that. And it's just really good insight to see, particularly for newer Defender owners, that that's sort of where we've come from. Now, staying with the Defender theme of things, it's about time we actually headed over to Solihull and had a look around their factory.
What you're now looking at is nothing new. In fact, it must be one of the oldest operating car construction lines in the world. Little has changed in 60 years. The components, the tools, the methods and the simplicity. Lode Lane in Solihull is a spiritual and physical home of Land Rover, and it's where the Defender is assembled. You'd be forgiven for thinking that we were still in the World War II armaments factory, but this, kids, is how it used to be done. Properly. Modern vehicles are efficiently built with robots and science to make them all perfect. But there is something reassuring about seeing a small army of construction line workers handcrafting your vehicle. It's a place where vehicles are given their souls. The line is actually a couple of lines. Starting with a bare chassis, the guys and girls on this part of the line, with the help of some lifting gear, start assembling from the ground up. At this point, I think we'd all benefit from some quiet time and watch the show. The other line assembles trim and final fixtures, taking the body parts from paint and oddly stripping them down again before final assembly, with the end of the line adding fluids, door sets, seat fittings and wheels. The Defender line produces staggering 308 different model derivatives, with each Defender body carrying over 2,000 spot wells, nearly 400 rivets and 21 metres of sealer. Just before a Defender ships out, they are taken off track to do quality checks, alignment of wheels and headlamps. I wish I was a Defender.
What really fascinates me about that is that Defenders are still all made by hand by an army of men, and it sort of gives you a bit of a clue of why they're probably not that economical to to make anymore, as well as the clamping down on emissions and the way that cars are built and things. So, but again, a really good insight into the Defender line there. If you would like to go and have a look yourself, for the first time Land Rover are now opening up the Defender line for visitors. We'll put the links on the screen, and I believe it's £45 a person to go around the Defender line tour. I'm told that this hasn't been done for a while. You can do a solihull tour which shows off some of the other lines, but you don't often get to go on the Defender line, so make it quick. You've only got 12 months or so to get that done now. And just before Christmas we took delivery of the 2015 Range Rover Evoque autobiography. Here's what we thought of it. It's smaller, lower, more car-like than anything you've seen before from Land Rover, but it does look familiar. And at £50,000 for this top-spec version, it'll have to earn its stripes to attract customers and justify sporting the sacred Range Rover badge, which is boldly sported front and centre. So what do we care about the 2015 Range Rover Evoque autobiography? So we've had this vehicle for a few days now on review, and it's taken me a little bit of time to get used to it. Sure, I don't mind the way it looks, very highly spec'd, but I'm a daily Defender driver, so my view of a Land Rover is a little bit different to this. However, it has grown on me. This vehicle sports the green oval, so there is an expectation beyond that of what a normal car would have to do. It needs to be able to get muddy, it needs to be able to go through water, and many other things beside. One thing we do notice with all new Land Rover vehicles is that they all have taken a very aggressive styling stance. Now, the Evoque, when sat next to any of the other vehicles, does sit quite a bit lower. It's actually quite a bit shorter than the old Freelander as well. But the rest of the design details are very similar. I do like this, and I know that many people do, but there is a problem. If you don't like one of the Land Rovers these days, chances are you're not going to like any of them. The Range Rover, Range Rover Evoque, Range Rover Sport and Discovery all share the same design concept. Be interested to see what the Defender looks like when that comes out, and the Discovery Vision. So looking around the vehicle, there are lots of things which, to be honest, I really don't know how they work. It's just wizardry. You take, for example, the headlights. The headlights on this particular vehicle light up when you go round a corner, so not only in front of you like you normally expect them to, but they do turn a bit. There's also extra lights on the side which show you if you're about to run a cyclist over. Could be useful. Being an autobiography, there are a few extra things that you get. One of them is these tiny little badges on the side here that just says enough. I could spend that extra bit of money. But on the inside is really where you notice the difference. And on this particular one, it's trimmed out in cream to a very high standard with some superb stitching. We see a lot of aftermarket Defender upgrades nowadays from Kahn and Bespoke and even Overfinch, and the work is always really good. But you're just reminded when you come back to a Land Rover vehicle quite how much better it can be. And this really is an exemplary example of quality inside a vehicle. That said, if you're going to get your boots muddy or your dirty trousers, you'll be valeting this quite often. It's full of all sorts of other trickery around it and some sporty touches as well. They put a spoiler on it to, I guess, give you a bit more downforce. And it's not brand new, but we kind of like it. I'd quite like one of these on a Defender. You just touch this and the boot opens by itself. It does close by itself as well. Now, as we round by the boots, this isn't new, but it is worth noting with the Evoque, there isn't quite as much room in the back as you'd think. It looks quite good, but just standing there looking at it. But actually, when you start loading kit into it, you're a little bit restricted, as you are in most modern cars these days, by the width of the load area. Nonetheless, it can seat 5 people pretty comfortably, and there's a reasonable amount of legroom in the back. And you could get most of your week's shopping in there, if not your golf clubs. When you're buying an autobiography, you're sort of making a bit of a statement to the world. It does come with this extra little badge on there, and there are extra little bells and whistles across the vehicle. Are they necessary? Probably not. Would I like to have them? Yeah, why not? The biggest part of this vehicle was the learning curve required to actually get it going. I think I'm pretty tech savvy, but there's a lot on this, so let's take a look. First off, when you jump inside, it's not a brand new thing, but there are no gear levers. This one is a 9-speed automatic, which it has to be noted, the 9-speed gearbox is fantastic. It pulls well all the time and has a performance of what I would expect a hot hatch, really. As you can see, there are just tons of controls everywhere. And there's some I like, some I'm not so keen on. What they've done in the brand new Range Rover is added this as an option here. It's a funny looking box, but it actually gives you a heads-up display and projects holographically some various bits of information on the screen whilst you're on the windscreen whilst you're going along. I don't know if I like that or not. It took a little bit of getting used to, but the one thing that I can say about it is it gives you yet another place to view information. So for example, in the Evoque there are 3 places if you want to know how fast you're going. You can use the traditional needle readout. In the centre of the dials is also a digital readout of how fast you're going, and with the heads-up display it tells you again, projected on the windscreen. It's the same with the sat-nav as well. You program the sat-nav from here, but it shows up on the screen here, again in the middle of the clocks, and projected up through the heads-up display. That's probably quite useful, but I've yet to come to a favourite of which one I prefer to look at. And whilst we're at it, the sat-nav will get you anywhere and is more reliable than Apple Maps, but I have to say if you're used to TomTom, Garmin or any of the popular apps that you can get for smartphones these days, the actual interface on the map section here, it's a bit naff. There is something to be said about the complexity of vehicles these days. One of the things that you do really notice is that you really just need an instruction manual to use it. One of the things that we did was actually, when we had this vehicle delivered, was to take it up to the dealership and just get an overview of all the things it can do. If you buy a second-hand Evoque, you really do want to ask the previous owner about how to use everything, because it's not that intuitive. Sure, there are big buttons around everywhere, but on the steering wheel there are so many. Working out what each and every one of them do is quite difficult. When it comes to the steering wheel, on the autobiography, you get the option for a heated steering wheel. I'm not a fan of heated seats, many of you out there may be, but a heated steering wheel was really the last thing I ever thought I wanted. That was until it was really cold. As you can probably see, my circulation's quite bad. The heated steering wheel actually is really pleasant on cold mornings. Sure, 10 months of the year you probably won't use it. For those couple of months that you do want it, it's really, really good. Most things on this vehicle are completely automatic now. Automatic lights, so they will come on and off. This isn't a new thing, but what it does have is automatic dipped headlamps. You can switch this off, and I actually opted for that in the end because I found the delay of somebody coming at you whilst you've got your full beams on, they generally flash or get a bit annoyed at you. It also has a pretty smart cruise control where it'll sense the distance for the car in front. Again, this is really good, but you do start to get the feeling, which I've never had using cruise control before, that you don't actually need to even steer. It's kind of like being on the train. A little while ago we drove the Range Rover Evoque autobiography. That was over £100,000 worth of vehicle, and it was really good. I have to say that at less than half the price, this vehicle really doesn't feel shortchanged. It's got everything. You've got your 3 position memory seats, they're electric, heated and whatever else you need. And the thing that we really like about this vehicle is all the little details. Touch sensitive lighting. It wouldn't have been any more effort to have a little button in there like it would traditionally be. But it's there and we really like it. And the one thing that's great about this vehicle, because it's a bit more squat and feels a bit more closed in, they've put a panoramic sunroof in. You can open and close this, but I opened it as soon as we got the vehicle and I've never shut it, and I don't know why you would want to either. As with all Land Rovers these days, it comes with electric terrain response modes. These do all sorts of different things along the way, and I'm sure you've seen it on other Land Rovers as well. The one I haven't seen was dynamic. What I'd assumed that meant was you put it on dynamic and it'll just set up the car for whatever you're doing. That's not what it means. The car gets very angry, projects a whole load of red lights, stiffens the suspension and gets you ready to go racing. Most people who own an Evoque will never get its boots muddy and will probably be seen more often at school gates than in any grassland or mud. But you can be assured that the same effort and care has gone into the Evoque to make sure it performs off-road. And if you've been to a Land Rover Experience Centre, the Evoque will do all of the things that the Defender and the Range Rover and the Discovery will do. But this one's not ours, so we will get it a bit muddy. In the spirit of Hibernate, we've come out. It's absolutely freezing this morning. And let's see how it goes. Getting the Evoque muddy really reminds you of its utilitarian heritage. It handled the different terrains very well and never felt panicked doing it. It's actually great fun to drive and fills you with confidence that it'll get you home no matter what. Sure, the ground clearance is not great, and on this model the low profile tyres are not really designed for this kind of work, but even still, it is a real Land Rover, and one that's worthy of the Range Rover mark. I have to say, now that vehicle's gone back, I do kind of miss it. Now, I know there'll be plenty of you out there who aren't fans of the Evoque, but I have to say it's an incredible vehicle. There's so much in there, and of course there are people that say there's so much to go wrong as well. But I'm reliably informed that actually, despite its complexities, that it's not going to be an absolute pig. But we'll see in 15 years' time how many of them are still on the road. As always, we'd really like to hear your thoughts. So we'll put all the social networks links all over the screen. We are on loads of different networks now. Traditionally, you probably will know us from YouTube, our website, Twitter and Facebook. We've now expanded to another 6 websites. Some of them we just put pictures on, some of them we do, I don't know what we do. We'll put the links on the screen, you can check it out. Now, for the third in our series with Sean Conway, the endurance adventurer, we're going to actually take a look inside his vehicle, what he's done, how he's modified it, and well, how he uses it.
I'm a big fan of lightweight adventuring, and you don't need as much as you think you can, so trying to keep it simple so that I'm not overloaded with too much stuff. Well, obviously I needed a roof rack, so I've got the front runner roof rack with kayak mount, I've got a bike rack, I've got some boxes just to keep bits and bobs in, and then right at the back I've got diesel and water. I live on a boat which uses a lot of diesel, so it's always nice to have a bit of extra diesel, and then water, obviously for cooking and eating, and try to keep a lot off the roof rack because I know I need to put my kayak and my bike on there when I need to. Obviously you've got the snorkel and the lights. Not sure I'll ever go underwater in this country, but you never know, it's nice to have it. Right, and then round the side we have these very cool gull wing windows which open out, which allows me to shelter from the rain. But also I can get stuff without having to crawl in the back, and all my camping gear's here, my kayak stuff, and some pink socks as it turns out. First aid kit. Yeah. Camping mats if I want to go actual sleeping on a hill, and various things like that. So it's nice just to be able to get all your stuff without having to climb in. Right, so on the back here, first up you'll notice this pretty cool wheel cover. That's actually a barbecue. It comes off, if you strap it off, build your fire on the beach, put the barbecue over and cook your eggs. That's pretty awesome. What attaches the barbecue to the wheel is some wheel steps, which just help me to climb on the roof instead of having the ladder here. And then obviously high lift jack and things like that. I also had the windows tinted, which just gives me a better night's sleep, to be honest. So here we have her. This is my home half the time. I have a bed running down the side, which I made myself actually, which is pretty cool because if I don't need it, I can fold it up like that. And it folds flat. And under the bed, I've just got typical camping stuff. Food, water, coffee, hot chocolate, tea, which I cook on a jet boil. That keeps me hydrated and fueled. And then everything else here is pretty much just my outdoor kit. So I have all my winter jackets, gloves, cycle helmet, cycle shoes, more winter jackets here, which are useful. Food, spare food, just pasta and things like that can stay there, and they're all there permanently. I do also have a pop-up tent, just in case. Sometimes it's a 2-man tent. If it's really windy, sometimes being in this sort of shakes around, and carry that with me. Chairs, tables, and pretty much it really. Kind of trying to keep it simple. You often see Landies with loads of stuff everywhere, and actually I'm trying to simplify life a little bit more, I think. So that's Mana, my Defender. She's pretty standard other than the bits and bobs I've added to her. I like to try and keep it simple, just like when I cycled around the world and ran the length of Britain, keeping it really simple, lightweight as possible. It's kind of less clutter in my life is a good thing, and You know, I know a lot of people put lots of things on Landies, but I just want to have the bare essentials, and to be honest, it gets me wherever I need to get.
You know, I still haven't given my Defender a name. Answers on a postcard. And if you do want to get in touch with us on the show, if you've got a great idea or something, an area of Land Rover that you think we're not looking at the moment, do let us know. Over the next few weeks, we've got some really exciting announcements which will make a big difference to the show. And, well, we hope you like that, so do stay tuned. Coming up in next week's show, we also have our trip from just before Christmas again, when we went to a university called Harper Adams, who have their own off-road track. We also see some of the students get stuck. That's all for now. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.